Let's bring in Rick Perry, former Energy Secretary and former Texas governor. Rick, good to see you. First, I want to get your take on this. The White House is again saying they've done nothing to impede American oil and gas drilling. The opportunities still exist. You were in that office. Is that your take as well?
I'm always surprised that someone working for that administration can say that and not have a smirk on their face. That is a talent. But it's one of the few talents that they have. Everyone, whether you're a pro-fossil fuel individual or whether you're on the left, know that this administration is way in over their head. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to national security, because that's the first and most important issue that we have here. Because of their praying at the altar of the environmentalist, they have throttled the oil and gas industry to the point in this country where that our national security is at risk. And you're now putting it in the hands of a dictator in Venezuela. I mean, the only place that you could go to put you in greater danger would be in Russia. And we saw them do that with Russia by allowing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to go forward. So from a national security standpoint, if you don't talk about anything else, not price, not inflation, not any of that, just national security, this administration has done more to hurt the American preparedness to protect America than any administration in current history, going all the way back to at least Jimmy Carter, and I'll suggest to you even worse than Jimmy Carter.
You know, you'd think that securing the homeland, national defense, would be priority number one for this administration. But it does seem like they pray at the altar of the climate alarmists. And so we do have clean energy right here in America. But to think that they would go to Venezuela where they have, tar-intensive, sulfur-intensive fuel, not as clean as American energy, which, by the way, doesn't give us American jobs, and it props up a communist regime. Does this make any sense to you?
Well, not a bit. And I mean, you lay it out perfectly. Here's what we need to keep in mind. America reduced emissions more than any other country in the world during the last decade. And it's because of the transition from older, inefficient power plants to cleaner burning natural gas. If we could be selling that American natural gas into Europe, we would be removing old coal plants. And what are they doing in Europe now? Because of the administration, this administration's policies, they're transitioning back to old coal plants, American LNG staying in the ground, American jobs lost. This just goes on and on with its ineptness from the standpoint of national security and economic security for America.
Listen, the administration might say, you know what, we want to keep the liberal progressives happy. Joe Biden maybe wants to win a primary in 2 years from now, so he wants to shut down American oil and gas. Okay, I disagree with that, but we just heard a story from the Wall Street Journal where Guyana, which is right off the southeast coast of Venezuela, right north of Brazil, just found massive reserves of oil, low in sulfur, it's clean. And they're an ally of the U.S., which, by the way, we don't see that many allies in South America any longer of the U.S., but they're one of our allies. The Biden administration is trying to push back and not let them drill in Guyana, but all the while going to Venezuela, the communists, and saying you can drill there. And what this is going to do, Rick, as you know, is going to make the Chinese come in and develop that oil with Chinese jobs and Chinese security as opposed to American jobs and American security.
Indeed. And I mean, this just makes no sense in a host of different areas. And this administration seems to be totally unable to say, you know what, we made a mistake. I mean, if you heard Joe Biden or anyone on his administration say, hey, look, we've made a mistake somewhere, anywhere, please bring that to my attention. I must have missed it. But this is destroying the American ability to defend this country because of the the national security aspect of these resources. And when you talk about Western hemispheric security, when you're putting that into the hands of communists, when you're not allowing pro-American interests to be able to drill and explore for those resources, it just doesn't make any sense at all from an American perspective. I mean, he does not understand America first, that's for sure. And we've seen that multiple times.
We laugh at that, but it's not funny. It would be great to have a president who did believe in America first.
Indeed.
But I want to switch gears on you because the Biden administration has recently agreed to pay climate reparations to poorer countries. But with those reparations, Rick, you know what's going to happen is there's going to be strings tied to those reparations where they can't use oil and gas. And we know the cheap, abundant fuel sources, fossil fuels, is what lifts people out of poverty and into the middle class. So in a way, isn't the administration locking these poorer countries into poverty?
Stunningly out of touch with reality is what I consider this reparation issue to be. Number one, China, which is spewing more emissions into the air with their coal plants every day and building on them, they're not going to participate. Matter of fact, I'm sure they're going to stand at the front of the line and say, hey, send that American money over here. We'll be more than happy to have it. This just doesn't make any sense. And I want to speak about one other thing. Those anti-fossil fuel environmental radicals who say, sorry, if you're a third world country in Africa, you're just not going to have access to any of those electrons like we have. You're just not going to get any electricity. You're not going to have the ability to have an incubator or a sonogram. You're just not going to have it. You're going to have to burn wood or burn cow dung to keep yourself warm or to see at night. That's what they're saying to these individuals, Sean, and it's beyond me. I mean, how black does your heart have to be to look the African continent, billions of people over there, and say, sorry, you're just not going to get any fossil fuel. It ain't going to happen. You're just going to die. But that is incredibly unbelievable when it comes to the human heart that I thought Americans were supposed to have. Which,
again, we want to lift people up, bring them into the middle class, and these policies are just going to drive them further into poverty. But what frustrates me is when you see the likes of Barack Obama and others, they buy beachfront property that are right on the ocean. So they must not think that the seas are going to rise or big storms are going to come and wipe out their homes. The likes of John Kerry fly around on private jets. And so as they live a lifestyle high in energy, 8,000, 10,000 square foot homes, 20,000 square foot homes, they again want Africa, who's poor, to sit in poverty and not have energy. What hypocrites.
Yeah. It's cold-heartedness is what it is. Now, it's beyond me that if people really care about humans, fossil fuels is going to be how you bring them out of that poverty, how you bring them to a flourishing lifestyle. And you either stand up and say, we don't care about you, we've got ours, but we're not going to let you have it.
Rick, one last
I just don't think that. I don't think that works.
One last question for you, though. I think the only way this administration was going to change course from these radical policies, if the voters would have come out in the midterm elections and said, you know what, we are going to reject what you've done. We're going to reject $4, $4.50 a gallon gas at the pump and heating oil that we can't afford. We're going to reject that and bring in another party that's going to actually support our lifestyles. But the voter didn't do that. The voter basically said, we're going to give Republicans a slight majority in the House and no majority in the Senate. And so I think the message from the Biden administration and Democrats is America loves these policies. America is just as green and radical as we are. Am I wrong?
Well, I think they're wrong.
Well, I agree.
And the key is, I think, the Republicans are going to control the House. They are. I mean, Kevin McCarthy is going to be the speaker. And if we go out and do our work in Georgia, Herschel Walker will come in. It'll be a 50-50 Senate, which makes Joe Manchin on energy issues a very, very important person. So from the standpoint of, doing a victory dance, spiking the ball in the end zone, if I were Joe Biden, I would keep my powder dry here until we get down the road here a little bit further, because I think you're going to see a House and a Senate together that understands how important fossil fuels are for America, for the future, particularly on the national defense side. And winning that seat in Georgia is really important. So, folks in Georgia, get it right down there. Let's send Herschel Walker.
Rick Perry, I hope you're right that America understands and Joe Biden gets the message and we change course soon. You are always smart, especially on these issues. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Sean. God bless you, brother.
God bless you, too.